But football without fans is not. You play a football match without fans, you're getting it. It can be the greatest game in the world. If there are no people there to watch, it becomes nothing.
And to Johnson. Johnson. And a goal by Johnson. Larson. Oh, he's in. Henrik Larsson. That is sensational. Nakamura. He has done it. Isn't that just typical?
The game is over. The Rebels have won. Champions, that's who we are.
What's happening, boys? What is happening?
Bonjour.
Jungle Gyms, Tuesday TikTok. Tuesday the 7th of March. Tuesday TikTok. We've got James, we've got McGinty, we've got Paddy and myself. Welcome to the viewers. Hope you're all doing well. Guys, how was the weekend? I know that you obviously did the post-match for Celtic and St Mirren. Apart from that, how was the weekend, Paddy boy?
Marvellous. Bloody marvellous. Nice and quiet.
Lovely. James, what's cooking? What's happening?
Not a lot, mate. It's running a wee bit late there. I'm still earlier than McGinty, so there we go. Shots
McGinty,
fired.
how's life in the Shetlands?
I had to change the baby's nappy and run around and do a few things. So excuse me.
Look at you getting all hands on.
Yeah, got to do my bit.
Your bit. You've already done your bit for 30 seconds. Yeah.
25. Go on.
McGinty's been firefighting all night. Yeah, by the way, totally random. I was out on Saturday night for a few jars in town, and I was drinking Tennants, which I normally start off my night out with drinking Tennants, but my mate switched onto that Barcelona beer, Estrella. Is that how you pronounce it? Estrella.
Estrella. Yeah.
I've never had it before.
Nice.
You never had Estrella before?
I've never. Normally, when you're half cut on a night out and you change beer, you won't notice the difference. Like, you could go from a good beer onto a shite beer and you won't notice the difference. But this was a marked improvement from Tennants to this Estrella. Really, really enjoyed it, man. So I'm intrigued. I'm going to have more of that.
See, to be fair, mate, you could drink a pint of piss and it would be an upgrade on Tennants.
Exactly. I mean, I'm going to be hell of a bias sitting here in a Barcelona shirt singing the praise of a Barcelona beer, but it really is actually quite a nice beer. One of my top three. Next to probably Beer Moretti and Styrofoam.
I like. Is it Heverly? Heverly. That's pretty nice too.
The Belgian beer. I hear it's nice, but I stay clear of Belgian beers.
It's very strong. Let's just say that.
James, I take it you're not, or you've graduated from Wicked on a night out. What's your tipple now?
I say Smirnoff Ice. I'm on to a couple of hoochies and then move on to Smirnoff Ice. No, I'm not a lager drinker. I'm a cider man. I'm not a lager drinker.
Okay, fair enough. Always has to be one in a group, huh? One odd, one out. Right, anything is better than Tennants. I used to say that about Stella, but I think Stella's okay, isn't it?
Fuck off, you.
Tennants.
Dan Breen also says tea is shite. Tennants. What just says Moretti, number one. And there's one there for the aptly named Mr. Jameson. Hobgoblin is a nice beer.
You know what we should do, and this is not a promo, but we should totally get somebody like, was it Beer Hawk or Beer 52 or whoever, get them to sponsor us, and we can all sit here with 4 different beers each week. Do a wee review of it, then get into the football chat. We can get nuts for the boy.
Why not, mate? Why not? Is dry roasted or salt and vinegar?
I don't even like nuts. That was a lie. I'll stick with crisps. I'll get a wee packet of Golden Wonder. That'll do me.
How do you like these nuts?
That's council crisps, mate. You know McCoy's are the real king. Right, to the viewers, obviously, we've done the post-match review on Sunday, and we're not going to rehash that. I maybe just had one wee question about that, but guys, any topics you've got, fire in the chat, and we'll try and discuss it. One of the main topics for tonight, I know that Tuesday we normally talk about recent news. Gavin, are you a Marty Hobkirk? Is that rhyming slang or is that an actual beverage? I don't know. In fact, before we talk about that, James, could you give us the recent news, today's news? Celtic B against the Rotten Mob B. I believe that it was a resounding victory for us.
Yes, 3-1. They were running 3-0 in the Glasgow Cup, and the Rangers starting back four was all kind of pretty much no four after our kind of first team back four. It was that Yilmaz boy they signed for however many million. Leon King that was playing for the first team for a while. I think the boy Divines played a few games, and John Suter. Wilson, I forgot about John Suter. Boy for Hearts. So, aye, good result.
Lovely, mate. Lovely. You don't expect that type of news on a Tuesday, but that warms the heart. And speaking about the continued implosion at Ibrox, one of tonight's main topics was actually inspired by the Rotten Mob gaffer, Michael Beale. And recently he has been talking in the news after the setback, after they got humbled by us in the cup final. He's been lamenting about the disadvantages that he's faced in the hot seat at Ibrox and the fact that we are financially superior to them. You know, he's talking about the disadvantages that it's difficult to overcome us. We're the biggest spending club, that sort of thing. And it's kind of like a rebuild or a revamp. I forget the word that he's using now about his squad. At one point, they were good enough, but now he needs more funding. He needs more players for next season. And I was kind of thinking about your debut season as a manager, primarily switch the attention to Celtic managers. If we could talk about kind of memorable debut seasons for Celtic managers, not going too far back, not going far back as like Tommy Burns, but I had in mind a few debut seasons that we could maybe discuss, from like Martin O'Neill to Brendan Rodgers to Neil Lennon, etc., and of course Postecoglou. But in terms of like a debut season for a manager, I wanted to get your guys' thoughts. How would you assess it at the end of the season, like the success of how well they've done? Do you take into account a lot of things like the context, the strength of the opposition? So, like McGinty, for example, Martin O'Neill, he had a big reputation and he was a Celtic manager, whereas Gordon Strachan, he came in and he was definitely not a Celtic manager. That kind of goes some way. The character, the charisma of a manager can go some way in terms of the fans' memories of how they rate a manager, how well they did. And other things like the net spend of a manager, how many scalps they took against the Rotten Mob in a season, how well they did in Europe, how many did they win much silverware as well. Paddy, if I ask you, what's the main things that you need to do as a Celtic manager in your debut season to win people over and to keep a job? What's the main thing?
Win the league.
Win the league. And that's all. It could be pish style. You could be the most boring guy in the world, but as long as you win the league. Everybody's different. Ronnie Dyer, for example, he won 2 league titles in a row. McGinty, is there like anything else as a Celtic manager that you would say is a prerequisite to get the fans on side?
Play with style more than anything else. Well, win the league first and foremost. Sorry, I agree with Paddy there. Is win the league, but play with style. You'll get the fans on board if you're doing something great on the pitch, and the results are coming with it. You'll be hit and miss depending on what else you do, or if you don't do one or the other. But yeah, play with style, win the league.
Good man. And James, before we go into a little bit more detail and break it down, from the top of your head, who would you say had the best debut season as Celtic manager from like the turn of the century?
Rodgers, it's got to be, doesn't it? I mean, you can't really improve on perfection. But O'Neill probably a close second, but I think it's got to be Rodgers as much as a rat.
That's fair enough. And very, very honest of you, even though the guy's reputation has been tarnished in your eyes, you would still hold him at the highest regard in terms of debut seasons. Before we do that, let's have a wee look at the comments. Martin O'Neill for me from Patrick McLaughlin. Would anyone disagree with Martin O'Neill? Obviously, James threw in Brendan Rodgers. You've got progress and have faith for future seasons. And I guess like a lot of these managers did brilliantly in their first season to varying degrees, but you can't take into account the context of, you know, how strong the opposition were. Was it achievable to actually beat them in your first season? But are you getting better and better as things go on? Other shoots of recovery? Because normally, whenever you become a Celtic manager, you're taking on a team who've done shite in the previous season. Arguable. Like, for example, Martin O'Neill in his last year, Gordon Strachan in his last year, you know. Before we do that, how about a wee who am I? Who am I? Right, former Celtic player. I've given this like 2 minutes thought. Okay, so it might be a crap one. Do you mind that one I did? Left-footed midfielder, and you're like, John Collins. I'm like, you bastard.
Steve Guppy.
Right, okay. This guy won trophies in his Scandinavian country before he came to Scotland. Let's see what else he did. I'm totally prepared here, mate. Sorry. Midfielder, 6'2". He scored the opening goal in a cup final for Celtic. Anyone wish to hazard a guess?
Weakhorst.
No.
He's the defender. Recep.
Yeah.
Who's the defender?
Weakhorst. Was he no defender?
Midfielder.
Sarah, midfielder.
I still got it right though.
Get it.
Right, okay. Shall we get into it? Paddy, I've got that quick fire round for yourself. We can do that later on if you wish. Or do you want to start with it right now?
No, go for it.
Right, for yourself, aye?
Aye.
Right, okay. So, McGinty, you may remember about 2 weeks ago we did a quick fire round with yourself. We got a couple of interesting answers. Paddy, this is basically, you don't need to think about it too much. You know, it's just, I'll hit you with phrases or questions. Just give me the first answer that comes to mind. Childhood hero.
The Jackie McNamara.
Jackie McNamara. Okay.
The Jackie Marcus.
Best autobiography that you've read?
Don't know if I've read one.
You've not read books?
What, in general or Celtic?
Oh, hopefully like football. Like a football player. Doesn't have to be Celtic.
Martin O'Neill's.
Name any book you've read.
The Beano.
No picture books.
There we go.
It's good books.
Ali McCoist as a pundit.
Rick. I was a pundit. All right.
He actually won an award last night, I believe. Ultras, good for the game or not?
What?
Ultras, football ultras.
Umpires.
Ultras.
Ultras.
Oh, ultras. Aye.
Paddy's a time-wasting bastard. I know his game. He's bringing the tempo right down so he can think about it. Paddy, mate.
Sorry.
I'm too wide for this. Favourite away ground?
Hearts. Tynecastle.
Okay. Topical. Target man?
Sutton.
Okay. Tracksuit or suit manager?
Tracksuit.
Paddy likes a tracksuit. Favourite formation?
4-4-2.
4-4-2. Fondest victory over the Rotten Mob?
6-2. Martin O'Neill's debut season.
One opponent that you respected?
Modric.
Okay. Transfer flop?
Shite.
To Bumblebee or not to Bumblebee? That is the question.
To Bumblebee.
Okay, good man. Strachan or Lennon as a gaffer?
Oh, it's Strachan. Just.
Most overrated fan favourite?
Abada.
Yeah, that's a good one. Best Englishman to play in the hoops?
Chris Sutton.
Most talented Lisbon Lion who wasn't a ginger?
Bobby Murdoch.
Peter Lowell. Hero or villain?
Villainous hero.
Wasted talent.
McGeady.
Paul Lambert or Callum McGregor?
Calmac.
Parkers.
Fuck off. Not even answer.
Cadet or Kyogo?
Kyogo.
Yeah, and finally, one Rangers player that you hated playing against.
Oh,
Okay.
Fucking
okay.
all of them.
We can't.
There we go. That's sure up. There we go.
Fairness. That looked like a bit of an effort for Paddy. You made it through, Paddy. Well done. Well done.
Sorry, guys. Fuck
Yeah.
lines there. It's no way.
No
It's no way
worries,
me
no
to be
worries.
speechless.
Stage right. McCoy's, a lot of people saying Kenny Miller, McCoy's. I would say for me, Alberts, I hated playing against Alberts in the 90s. Gorham would be an obvious one. Right, guys, let's talk about Celtic managers, their debut season. We don't need to start in chronological order. What I will do is I'll send you a wee link so you can look at it on the side if you want, just to see about the transfers in and out and their net spend. I think the net spend is... and that's a factor why I want to talk about this tonight, because Ange Postecoglou, I think his net spend is rather respectable in his overall debut season. Yeah, he's in the black. He's not in the red. So I'll send you a wee link for each one that we talk about. Who do you want to start off with? Martin O'Neill, Strachan, Lennon. Lennon's first one. We won't do Lennon's second one. Brendan Rodgers. We can do Ange later on. I've even got Tony Mowbray for shits and giggles.
Chronological, my man.
Chronological. Okay, so we're going to go.
Before we dive into each individual manager, I like these topics, and I like to try and research some of this sometimes myself, just because I'm geeky and boring as fuck. I'm sure I looked this up once before, not too long ago, within the last 18 months or a year. And I'm sure outside of maybe 3 or 4 seasons, we've made a profit under pretty much every year that Peter Lawwell was our CEO. So I expect... No?
No. Poor Dan there can't even spell. Come on, mate.
Big Dan.
You're trying to slag me for not being able to use a measuring tape. You can't even fucking spell. Come on, mate. Get it up.
I reckon most managers, before we get to the numbers, and I want to know if it'll be correct to know on this, I think most managers up until this point with Postecoglou, although I think he might as well, have actually made a net profit in transfer dealings overall.
In their first season?
I mean, overall for the collective years that they've been at Celtic.
I would imagine Martin O'Neill brought in fuck all money, and I think he spent a lot of money. We will find out anyway in his debut season, because his transfer policy was buy ready-made pros, you know what I mean?
I did say under Peter Lawwell, to be fair, to cover my own ass there.
Okay. Good caveat. Save. Right, okay. Martin O'Neill. Now, I just want to kind of obviously remind you guys that Martin O'Neill won the treble in his debut season. Memorably, we beat the Rotten Mob 6-2 at Parkhead, but we get beat 5-1 at Ibrox, which kind of showed the lack of experience in the team, although we were heading in a good direction. A good experienced team who knew each other's game in and out. They wouldn't go from 6-2 to losing 5-1 away. Overall, a brilliant season for Martin O'Neill. Treble winners. However, in Europe, they get knocked out by Bordeaux 3-2 on aggregate. I think I was actually at the Parkhead game. I think we get beat 2-1, and there was this, I don't know if he was French, Las Landes, I think that's what his name is.
William Laszlons.
Laszlons, thank you, mate. But anyway, domestically, Martin O'Neill had a brilliant season. It was just too early for us to do much in Europe. And in fact, I think one of the opening qualifying rounds in Europe, we beat that Je ne sais whatever. And was it Mark Burchill? And Mark Burchill, I think, might have scored the fastest hat-trick in like 4 minutes. That was a European record. I don't know if it still stands, but back then, it was a European record. 3 goals.
Was that Thingby, Roy Hodgson's team? No, it was
that was
Neuchâtel Xamax.
No, that was Neuchâtel Xamax in 94, right? 95.
Right, guys, well, I guess we're going to kind of rehash the players in, the players out. But whenever we talk about who was the most successful manager for their debut season, it's totally subjective. There's probably no right and no wrong answer. Certainly Tony Mowbray wouldn't be a right answer. So I'm going against myself there. But let's talk about it. So have you got the link that I sent you?
Yes.
I should hope so. Right. The big players that came in for Martin O'Neill: Chris Sutton, Neil Lennon. I think Neil Lennon actually came in the January transfer. But Chris Sutton, Valharan, Thompson, Douglas, Didier Agat. Who else have we got? It was always kind of big money they'd be spending, wasn't it? Apart from Didier Agat, of course. And the people who left, Mark Viduka, he left to Leeds, and the money that he brought into the club, he reinvested it in Sutton. That transfer, I think, would not have happened without Viduka leaving. And of course, the man that we're talking about earlier on, Vidar Risev, he left to go to Germany, and he brought us in about £1 million. In terms of strengthening your squad like that, the transfer window didn't exist when we signed Lennon. Really?
Well, that's your Minty. Saying that, I know Minty's a very, very clever man. So I'll go along with that.
They'll do.
Patrick McLaughlin said Hartson was 2002. Yep.
Yeah, I've not mentioned John Hartson here, but I agree he was later on. Now, according to Transfer Market, Martin O'Neill brought in roughly about 10.6 million euros, but his expenditure was 30.5 million euros. So that was a loss of almost 20 million. So although it was a brilliant season domestically, he spent a lot of money. You could say, though, that we needed to do it. McGinty, your memories. Tell me, talk to me.
Memories? What memories?
Help me out, man. Were you alive back then?
When? 2001? 2000? 99? 2000? When we
Martin O'Neill's first season.
Okay, I'm looking up. I actually have the shirt of this treble winning season. Is an absolute legendary season, all signed and framed on our list. Mind going up to the stadium every week to try and get some extra signatures. As for that first season of transfers related wise, it was quite a whirlwind of transfers that were coming in. You didn't really see that before. 5-6 million on 3, 4, 5 players was unreal. I always remember Yusuf Alhan being the big one for me. I remember that I believe we did scout him at the Euros, and it was one of those kind of big signs that you thought, Christ, this guy, Martin O'Neill, he gets it. He's doing the right thing. He's going out there and he's scouting a real player. He's finding a real player who's at a good age. I think his transfer market there says he was 24 at the time. And we had somebody good coming into the club who wasn't a project. He wasn't a over the hill like Ian Wright and whatnot beforehand. He was finally like, somebody gets this shit and was actually going to do it proper. So I was full of confidence that season, especially with those signings coming in. You look at Sutton, Lennon, Valharan, big signings.
James, how old were you back then?
8 months, I think. No, I was 8. Just looking through that list, the one that jumps out to me for all the wrong reasons is Rab Douglas. I still maintain that Rab Douglas should have done better in Seville. I still hold him partly responsible. I cannot blame him for the goals.
Would you hold the management responsible for not buying a better class of goalkeeper? So we got him from Dundee, spent apparently about 2 odd million on the guy. Should we have went for Should we went for a better class of keeper? And who knows what would have happened if we had a better keeper?
Aye, when you look through that Seville, I know obviously we're jumping forward a wee bit, but when you look through that Seville team, I think the one kind of glaring weakness of the full team by an absolute mile is Rob Douglas, and obviously he proved that kind of more than once.
We'll see just to counter in with that. I totally get what you're saying about Douglas, but when we signed Douglas for Dundee, he was certainly an upgrade on Johnny Gould. Even though Johnny Gould had kind of served his purpose, he done well enough, he was still a kind of basic goalkeeper. He came in domestically and did well, Rob Douglas. But talking about Seville run, listen, there was a couple of games that Big Rob was absolutely superb in Seville, and he was one of the factors is getting to the final. But of course, obviously, if you want to kind of just compact it into, one game, then Big Rob was. Big Rob had his flaws. He had his flaws, but he was an honest big fucking bricky.
Aye, back in the day, we went through that. Obviously, I'm sure we're going to talk about a few of them. But we had absolutely red rotten goalies for years, and then obviously in more recent times it's totally went the opposite way. But nah, no for me.
I think Alan Thompson, apart from obviously Henrik Larsson and maybe Sutton to an extent, but Thompson for me was an absolute thumper of a player. He totally epitomised that Martin O'Neill team. I know that many people would probably think of the big three giants at centre back, playing for Celtic, but Alan Thompson, he had an interesting career. I know that he's done all the podcasts talking about his autobiography, but you kind of learn from that he played for Newcastle and Bolton, in Villa, but with injuries he came up here, and he had a few tremendous seasons at Parkhead. A brilliant player, but you only get the one cap for England, which is quite indicative of what happens whenever you've got an Englishman playing up in Scotland. It is what it is. But probably, arguably, the best team of our lifetime for Celtic. And whenever you consider that Henrik Larsson played for them as well, it's kind of difficult to think of a better team. You could probably say a better playing style has been witnessed under other managers. But in terms of forwards, technical ability, physicality, and the mentality of those players, they were all captains. Each and every one of them were captains on the park, apart from maybe Didi Nagat, perhaps. And of course, Martin O'Neill inherited a half-decent team as well. It was just a shame that Mark Reaper left. He got injured and he had to leave. But obviously, people like Lambert, Moravchik, Henrik Larsson, and Jackie McNamara to build on a spine like that. You're very lucky. Mjalpi as well. So, in terms of debut seasons, one of the best. If you were to grade it out of 10, McGinty, if you can still remember that time.
Debut season treble winning with that team, the 6-2 victory. I think, as we kind of said earlier, it's going to be hard push to beat O'Neill. The only one who probably does is the Invincibles with Rodgers. But considering where we were coming from the 90s, I know we'd previously stopped the run that the Rangers were on. But yeah, I'd get a solid 9 out of 10 for that one.
9 out of 10. Fair dues. Let's move on to Gordon Strachan. Gordon Strachan took over in 2005-2006. I might have sent you the wrong one. Did I send you 09-10?
Yes.
You did indeed.
No, ignore that one.
You sent us Mowbray.
No, we've not come on to the comedy part of the podcast yet. Gordon Strachan. So he came in 05-06, and the first thing that everybody was saying, the media perhaps were parading that a wee bit too much, was he's not a Celtic man. He made his name, started off at Dundee as a player, then Aberdeen, then he moved down to Man U. But a fantastic player, and for Scotland as well. And he was certainly someone who polarised opinion, a bit like Marmite. Very quick-witted, some great interviews, some great one-liners, which if you can go to YouTube, you can see a compilation of them. But as a Celtic man, Paddy, what was your thoughts whenever he came to be a gaffer at Parkhead? Had you made your mind up early to say, I don't like you, or were you open-minded back then?
No, I was kind of open-minded. Obviously, we had lost Martin O'Neill, who at that time was St. Martin. It was the best thing that I'd ever saw as a manager. Unfortunately, the kind of team quality had declined. Larsson had left. But then we got Strachan in. It was the first year that Knight came in, so that it was quite exciting at the time as well. But some of these signings were pretty good, even though we'd been told like Lawwell had come in, he'd taken over, and his job was to kind of downsize the finances being spent on players. But you look at some of the players that came in under Strachan at the start. I think the one that was the most exciting was, do you remember the boy that came to Arsenal, that Jeremy Aliadieri?
Yes, he was pish.
He was pish, mate. But he had a good pedigree. He was very well highly thought of down in England. He had that smoking hot bird, Leilani. Always remember her. So I was looking forward to seeing him. And as you say, he turned out to be pish. Things went downhill pretty quickly after the art media losses. And then it took a bit of a while to build up. But then obviously that season was the introduction of Artur Boric. He came in on loan. Then he ended up signing. Zaravsky started hitting heights. Hartson was still there scoring. Petrov was, I think, Petrov was kind of carrying the team at times. Certainly the style wasn't that great. But at the same time, it was kind of steady football. I think the thing that really, really pissed me off, just to kind of backtrack to the first question that you asked me in the quickfire, my Celtic hero when I was growing up was Jackie McNamara. And obviously we had kind of, Peter Lawwell had basically tried to use Jackie's loyalty to Celtic to try and lowball him in terms of a new contract. Now, at that time, Jackie McNamara was, I think he was a joint captain or something. And we ended up, I think we were offering him $5,000 a week to stay at Celtic, and ended up going, no, do you know what, fuck you. And he signed for Wolves. So that was a really, really sore point. And then obviously the way that we kind of let guys like Chris Sutton kind of dwindle down. I know he had a bad eye injury. And then he left. I think he went to Birmingham or something. So we were clearly trying to get rid of guys like that with the big contracts. But as what it is, every football team's got to kind of chop and change and evolve or fucking do whatever. But we ended up with some right good success under Strachan, some very, very good memories, obviously. The Champions Leagues and winning leagues. So I did well, reasonably well. Very, very good win percentage as well, which is quite surprising.
Very true, very true. So Paddy, as you said, and by the way, great comment. To fill the boots of Martin O'Neill, he was a fan favourite, one of the biggest fan favourites since the turn of the century. In fact, you'd be hard pressed to say that Postecoglou is more favoured than Martin O'Neill. Martin O'Neill is very much up there with Celtic fans. But to think about the context of becoming Celtic manager where you're not Celtic minded, and like Martin O'Neill having done the run to Seville, how you're meant to not even surpass that, but to try to even replicate that to an extent, very, very difficult. And as you said, with the financial downgrading as well, that's an important context to put in place. James,
I think if you look at, sorry, just James, 2 seconds, Paul. I think if you look at Martin O'Neill's last season, I'm sure he was only allowed to sign one player, and it was the guy for Livingston, David Fernandez, and it was like £1 million, and that was literally the only player that he signed. I think, no, am I talking shit here? No, he signed that on Enrique Mara and that didn't replace Larson. But you could see with each passing season, the powers that be weren't putting out to bring in better players. After the Seville season, we should certainly we could have spent to accumulate, because we went to a UEFA Cup final. We had outperformed English teams. We did this and did that. Of course, we ended up on the losing side, which is a fucking scunner. It was just downsizing all the time. So that was a bit of a trend. So obviously Strachan had to come in and kind of plug that gap. But he made a few good signings, and guys like Telford came in and done a job from kind of tried and trusted lieutenants, that type thing. And we had David Marshall obviously broken through, and then he ended up having a fucking blunderous start to the season, brought in Boric. But then guys like Ross Wallace were turning up, Craig Beattie, big bastard. So it was generally all right, you know what I mean? But sorry, James, my apologies.
No, not at all, mate. No, my overriding kind of memories of Strachan's whole tenure is just signing hard bastards. See it, your Hartleys, Robsons, Paul Telfer, even kind of maybe ones that didn't play so much, like Stephen Presley, Hesselink obviously played, McDonald, just solid pros. And see, when you look at the results he got in Europe with the team that was playing, like I always say we got to the last 9 because we got to extra time with AC Milan on the Wednesday night, so technically we're the 9th last team in it. But getting to the last 16, I mean, the back line was like, what was it, McManus, Caldwell, fucking Paul Telfer played the Man United game. Like the midfield, Hartley and Robson, 2 absolutely solid players. But when you look at what they're going up against in Europe, the results we got in the Champions League under Strachan just should not have happened. So that is my kind of overriding memory of Strachan. Just the fucking solid team, just full of good, hard professionals. And then maybe like Nakamura and McGeady on the wing.
Into vivid memories from those times, especially with the names. And as we spoke about the kind of the beginning of the Strachan era, who would you say was the most influential? You had obviously Boric, you had Nakamura, Dion Dublin.
By the way,
Dion Dublin's probably had a better career on the TV than Alan McCoist has, to be fair. He's
Holmes under the hammer. Dion Dublin, as far as I'm aware, still remains to this day the oldest debutant for Celtic.
Well, I'm going to counteract what McGinty's saying there about him having I'd say Alan McCoist has had a better TV career, because Dion Dublin might have Holmes under a hammer, but he's never been under Sue Barker. So there we go.
But did he do that on TV?
That's true. Fair point.
You don't want to see that on TV.
By the way, see talking about Dion Dublin, right? See if he's ever get an extra, a spare 5 minutes or whatever.
You're going to talk about his dong, aren't you?
No, that's another story for another time. No, if you've got a spare 5 minutes, go to YouTube, right, and type in the Dube, the D-U-B-E, and it's James is away. It's Dion Dublin, and I think it's his 3 brothers. They've actually invented a musical instrument. It's fucking quality.
Aye. That rings a bell. Just looking to see who actually left, like big players who left for his debut season. Ulrich Lawson left. You had Chris Sutton. Stefan Henshaw, he'd had his day. It never worked out for him at Parkhead. McNamara, as you said, Paddy. Vulgarin, he left. Rab Douglas, he left. And of course, the great Momo Silla left. Paul Lambert too. He went to Livy actually. And Dewey came in and he left in the same season. Another horrible setback of that season for Strachan. And by the way, he had a really good opening season, like a good debut season. But another bad setback was the defeat to Clyde. We'd even brought in Roy Keane on, signed him on a Bosman, I think, and he was part of that. Dewey was part of that as well. That was like the 3rd round of the Scottish Cup. However, despite that, we won the League Cup and we won the SPL title with 6 matches remaining. I can't tell you exactly the players that Rangers had back then, but to win the title with 6 matches remaining in your debut season is very, very good. I don't even remember that, but I was reading it earlier on before we went live, so there you go. For Woodsy, I grew to like Strachan, but I hated him at first for getting Big Roy sent off in the 1984 Cup final. I don't remember that. I would have to YouTube it, obviously, because I wasn't born, but I'd have to YouTube that. And for Hugh Jameson, I remember wee Gordon getting attacked twice by Celtic fans who'd gone onto the park. I never thought that he would become Hoops boss. I've seen photos in the newspapers and the tabloids of him getting attacked by Celtic fans. Not something you want to see. He was a provocative wee guy, I know that, but are we taking that a wee bit too far?
By the way, there's just wanted to bring us up as well. Patrick McLaughlin, Hearts finished 2nd. I think you're right, mate. I think that was the what do you call him? Vladimir Romanov era. And by the way, what a team Hearts had at that point. Obviously, they were managed by
George Burley was the manager then. He went on some
Burley's
run.
uncle. What a team.
Jankowskis,
Craig Gordon, obviously.
Scatchel. So a very impressive season for Strachan, although at the start it went so peak-tong for him. James, you back? Is the Champions League about to start? Is that what game you got on in the background, mate?
It's Dortmund Chelsea. I think it's 8 o'clock. I think it was all that talk of Dion Dublin's Bobby. It's just made my laptop overheat there. Oh, what was going
on? Triggered something in your search history. Okay, so Neil Lennon. Now we're not going to do both Neil Lennon debut seasons. We'll just do the first one, which was the most impressive. Never got a treble, but I think the team that he accumulated, which I think a lot of focus is on that for debut seasons, the players that they chose to bring in, it's quite telling. So Neil Lennon, 2010, 2011, I'll just send you guys the link so you can refresh your memory. And to the viewers, you can go to Transfer Market and type this in, just to kind of see what we're talking about. But Neil Lennon, 2010, 2011, obviously he was the caretaker during the season before, halfway through. That was because of Tony Mowbray, who we'll kind of skip over right now because we know that Tony Mowbray made an absolute cunt of it. But Neil Lennon, he lost the league to Rangers in the season that he was caretaker. But the following season, it was a different thing. We were on pretty much an even keel. But if we look at the players that he signed, I think we've got fond memories of a lot of people like that, like Gary Hooper. Well, ignore Efran Suarez, who looked shit hot in his first game in that friendly against Arsenal. But Gary Hooper, Beram Kayal, who eventually got his move to England. Daryl Murphy, that was embarrassing. Anthony Stokes, who was doing the business domestically, so why not? And Fraser Forster. You know, if you're going to build a decent team, you need to work on the spine of your team. And bringing in Fraser Forster, that was a masterstroke. And Izagiri, you might say that was a left field transfer by getting someone for Honduras, but what a left back he turned out to be. James, looking at those names, quite impressive. Joe Ledley, another fan favourite too.
Aye, there doesn't really seem to be any in between with them. There wasn't really any steady eddies. They were all either really good or really no very good. But just talking about Efrain Juarez, he owes me 20 quid. See that Arsenal game you're talking about? We signed him, right? It was why they ones. I looked him up on YouTube. Absolutely buzzing. Looked a cracking player. Reading all about him. He does this, does that, does the next thing. So, like an absolute tadger, I went out and bought a Mexico flag. I went down to the Emirates with my dad for that Emirates Cup. So, there I am, turning up like a fucking 2-year-old with a Mexico flag tied around me, down to the Emirates. I've got all these visions of Cabrera signing his strip, getting a picture and all that. Fucking walked off the park. So, Efrain Juarez is in my bad books, knows me 20 quid for a Mexico flag. But looking through him, as I say, there's a lot of Gary Hooper, solid. Kayal, I think, is very underrated. Daryl Murphy, there's another one, absolutely dross. But do you remember, I think it was against Dundee United. I want to actually say, was that his last game for us as well? We'd already signed you. We knew he was off and he fucking scored an absolute
belter. It was Messi-esque.
Aye, it was a cracker. Mastorovic, Diddy, as we said, Forster, Izagiri, Coleman.
Whoa. Mastorovic was there, did he?
He was a fucking Diddy.
Listen,
Freddie Lundberg, there's an old Diddy.
See if it wasn't for Big Mastorovic, Big Wanyama would never have been the player for Celtic that he was. Because see, when Wanyama came in, they were actually training him up to be a centre-half, right? And I remember watching, they always used to warm up in my corner, just to the left of the joke team. And you always seen it before the games, before Wanyama eventually got a game in midfield because of injury. And Big Mastorovic was always with him and he was mentoring them. So I know Big Mastorovic, by the time that he came to Celtic, I think he was like 32, 33 maybe. And he was quite slow, but he was a big hard bastard. And we needed that at the time because our defence was quite soft. And when Big Dan Mastorovic came in, he was as solid as fuck. He was a big, bulgy, mad, big bastard there, guy. And aye. But sorry, just while I'm rambling on, while we are talking about Juarez, I've got a mate. Maybe try and get him on at some point if he can pull his balls out. He was telling me that he went to a nightclub one night, or a dancing as we call it in Glasgow, and he went for a pee. And you know what it's like, the toilets are busy sometimes. He was needing a shite. So he opens up the cubicle door, and there's this wee guy lying like in the space beside the toilet and the cubicle wall, lying like that, absolutely jaked, spewed all his cell and everything. Like that. He took one closer look at him, and it was fucking Juarez, absolutely steaming out his banger. So I think that was part and parcel of the reason why Juarez didn't make it at Celtic, because apparently he was quite fond of the drink. So clearly, he very much adapted to Scottish culture.
Was it
Yeah, by the way,
Braga in Utrecht, wasn't it? And he looked brilliant in the qualifiers.
Who wrote the banner? Who wrote the banner? Aye, we're at home tomorrow night and we're away at the weekend to them. Aye. Sorry, James, what were you saying?
No, I was just saying about Juarez when he first came in. Was it Utrecht and then I think it was Braga, wasn't it, in the qualifiers, and he scored and he looked fucking brilliant. And then obviously what happened, all the rumours, and I think there was a wee bit more on than what Paddy said in the toilets and stuff like that as well. So, but I thought he was going to be cracking for us.
Was there not a weird rumour about him in Mexico, how he got let go by the national team because... Yeah.
I'll say it. I'll say it because nobody else will. It was fond of trannies.
Radios, we loved Radio Clyde, didn't he? He was mad.
Sorry,
GBX.
Non-binary woman with dicks.
Was Ronaldo no caught up in that kind of stuff as well at one point?
Yes.
No, he's just a rapist, allegedly.
No, he's not about
Benzema no caught up in that.
No.
Was it Benzema? Some of the French players?
Benzema was a blackmailer, wasn't he?
Blackmail?
Yes. Yeah,
allegedly.
Was it Valbuena?
Yes.
Who gave Jimmy Forrest his debut? Was it
Lennon? Celtic Motherwell scored off the bench. I can remember it clear as day. Yep. Sorry for interrupting you, but the Youth Cup final was Celtic the Wednesday night against Rangers at Hampden, and I was at it with my mates. And James Forrest was absolutely fantastic, and I'm sitting at the game again, sitting with my dad. I'm like, James Forrest, don't get James Forrest. Don't. It's like, who the fuck's James Forrest? Shut up. Comes off the bench, scores an absolute cracker with pretty much his first touch. And but absolutely fantastic. I thought, well, of course, he's obviously not been a bad player, but I thought he would have maybe moved probably at that time with the hype that was surrounding him.
Talking about outgoings in his debut season, Neil Lennon, his gaffer, Aidan McGeady, he got the big move to Spartak Moscow. Paddy, when I asked you in a quickfire round about wasted talent, that was your man, Aidan McGeady. A lot of people thought he might go to England, but he ended up going to Russia. Better to go to Russia back then than what it would be now. He certainly made his money. I think he was on like 40 grand a week, tax-free. Fantastic. You set up for life. Thank fuck in that season as well. We got rid of Marco Antoine Fortuny. He was a waste of money. We bought him from West Brom and sold him back to West Brom, I believe. Oh, yeah. He didn't manage to do that very often because he didn't score very often. And, of course, Artur Boric, he left to go to Fiorentina. But, of course, replacing Boric with Foster. And that's like a kind of popular question to Celtic fans. Who do you prefer, Boric or Foster? Who was a better keeper? McManus as well. He went to Middlesbrough. Thank fuck for Gordon Strachan buying up all the Scottish talent back then. So he managed to make money off him. And Killian Sheridan, he left to go to CSKA Sofia. And McGinty, I know that you like this guy, Mark Rosas. He left to go to Russia. So anyway,
yeah, he went to Russia somewhere else and then ended up in Mexico.
So we brought in roughly about 20 million and we spent about 12 million. So Neil Lennon made us a profit in that season. So there you go. But to recap what happened for him in the 2010-2011 season, we lost the League Cup to Rangers 2-1 in extra time. We finished 1 point behind Rangers in the league. However, we won the Scottish Cup 3-0 against Motherwell. And in terms of European exit, well, normally happens with everybody. This is the recurring theme. Everybody does shite in Europe in their first season. We lost to Braga in the third round for the UEFA Champions League qualifier, and then we get knocked out by Utrecht in the Europa League playoff. I think that was Ricky van Wolfswinkel who did the damage against us that night. That was rather painful. So that was Neil Lennon. But I would say that although we never had the tangible success, we got the Scottish Cup, but we lost the league. We lost the League Cup. That's never fun. He managed to keep his job. Why do you think the reason was that he kept the job, McGinty? I thought he was building something. He brought in some great players. But do you think that was because of the strength of Rangers at the time?
Multiple things. I mean, I was just quickly looking at the league table there. They beat us to the league title by 1 point, 93 points to 92. I think it was 91 points that Strachan won his first season. So, as a seasonal points tally, he done more than enough to win a league. Coming off the back of what happened the year before with Tony Mowbray, he brought the Thunder back. He signed a whole bunch of players who had started to look pretty good.
Susie Maguire.
But he'd done a lot of good. And although he's one of the few times where you don't win the league in your debut season, but you can see what he was trying to do. The fans were behind him. The fans supported him at that time. Nobody could have said a bad word against him, really. So he 100% deserved to get the second season to get a shot.
Do you remember his speech at the last game at Celtic Park? Obviously, we had lost the league. Then he comes out onto the pitch and gets a microphone, and honestly, that speech that day, I was stood there in the crowd, and it was the fucking hair stood on your chest. It was emphatic, and you believed it. You believed that he was going to bring the thunder. As you say, failed his first season, capitulated up at Cali. That's what I think it was. But aye.
Was it the second season? Was the Kilmarnock game, the 3-3 draw that he was? I always mind the feeling then, and that's how quickly football can change in feelings. But it felt like the guy could have been sacked at halftime in that game. It was that bloody bad. But he brings it back, gets the 3-3 draw, and the mood changes in that 45 minutes. Even for fans, it was almost, he still got it. He can still bring the thunder. He can still motivate this team, give him that extra shot yet again, which is good. Definitely right. So trying not to cloud my judgment on his first tenure with what's happened most recently.
Do you think, Paddy, see that moment when he gave the speech, and you could see the team that he was building, but if you take into context about how poor we were at that time, but you could see what we're building, and he made the speech, and of course, do you think that was the kind of the height of Neil Lennon's popularity as a Celtic legend? How things have changed, but do you think that was the peak, or was there another high moment that I've witnessed?
No. Barcelona was his peak. Barcelona without a shadow of a doubt. But you need to look at where Lennon came in. As you say, it was the caretaker after Mowbray got the sack, came in, and I think it was the Ross County game, semi-finals, we get beat 2-0, and you could see the frustration. He came out and did the press interview afterwards, and he basically said that, we've got some players here who don't deserve to be playing for this club, and they won't be playing for this club, blah, blah, blah. And then for him to get the job as well, and all credit to the Celtic board, because they did take a huge gamble and giving Lennon the job full time. If you remember, they tried to set him up with Stuart Baxter, some fucking English cunt for, I think he was managing in Sweden or something, and he says, no, I'm not having it. If I'm the manager, I'm the manager. But at that time, he was leaning heavily on John Park, the scout, who's, I think he's still at fucking Ibrox now. But he came in, mate, and he revamped the entire team. And you could see in that first season, even though ultimately he lost the league, you could see the spirit was there, the fight was there, the desire was there, the passion was there, everything was there. Obviously, we were just that wee bit too inexperienced. We lost the league, but then the Scottish Cup final is still up there with one of the best games that I've saw for Celtic. Obviously, Pishna Rain, Ki Sung Young was scoring. Charlie Mulgrew scored a cracker. And you could see that that was when you could see that he was building something. Then obviously coming into the next season, it kind of dwindled down a wee bit. Obviously, he could have been at the door at Kilmarnock, and I think that was actually the speech that he gave at half time. I'm sure he saw that somewhere. I saw it somewhere. Sorry, was that he says to the players, "Listen, you fucking get out there and get me a result." He says, "Because if you don't, I'm sacked at the end of the game." And of course, Tony Stokes saved his job, and I think it was Charlie Mulgrew that scored the winner, with an assist by Dan Mastorovic, may I add. I think.
It was 2 free kicks, wasn't it, that day?
One free kick for Stokes, one driven shot, and a header for Mulgrew, kind of 80-something minutes.
Can I just ask?
Sorry, Gav, there's a very, very good comparison. For Woodsy, the 3-3 game was Lenny's Mark Robbins moment, and of course, as it says there, it saved Fergie's Man United job, because there was another guy who was severely under pressure and was literally due to get the sack until Mark Robbins scored a vital winner, I think.
What was that in like 1990? Because Fergie took over in 1986.
Yep.
I don't know about the year, but I. See the comment though for Hugh Jameson. He was talking about the time when Neil Lennon got attacked at Tynecastle. Was that in his debut season, or was that a season or two after? I forget, but I'll agree with you. That was a horrible incident. And whenever you think of Neil Lennon, his experience in Scotland, that goes hand in hand, that memory. But I was just wondering, did that happen in his debut season? Not that it takes away any relevance. It's something that is worthwhile talking about. But anyway, a different type of success for Neil Lennon. He only got one cup. That was the Scottish Cup. Lost the League Cup. Very, very close measures. But James, in terms of his predecessors, still good enough though to keep his job and march on to next season and win the league. So justified by the fans to keep him in a job.
Aye, definitely, and obviously his first tenure, he's obviously got some big nights in there. You think of the Joe Ledley header against them. That was a New Year game, wasn't it? We went top of the league, and then obviously Barcelona game, and that Motherwell game Paddy's talking about. I think that was the end of the season he took over from Mowbray. That was brilliant. I'm the same as Paddy. That's one of the best kind of atmospheres I've experienced. We'd lost the league, but you wouldn't have known it to be there.
And see the good thing about that, James, if you can remember the day, it was absolutely pushing the rain.
Pouring the rain, aye. Because that was mine. Was it Labby Seafrey? Fucking, what's the song?
Something that sounds so strong.
Aye. That was belting round and all, wasn't it? It was good.
Mm-hmm.
Forever Never Celtic. I am suspicious of any Celtic fan who has hate for Lenny. Well, as
looks
my mum
like
used to
I'm
say,
knowing Forever Never's favourite book.
Well, hate is a very strong word. I was always told that. And football fans can be fickle, but you know, the guy gave everything for Celtic once upon a time. He fucked it up, but does that take everything away from the good part of his ledger? You know. But we've all got opinions. That's why we've got a podcast here. If we all thought the same thing, there wouldn't be much to talk about. Why don't we talk about Brendan Rodgers? Who is more popular in your eyes, Brendan Rodgers or Neil Lennon?
Rodgers. Just.
Okay.
And no more.
Just. So you hate Neil Lennon, you severely dislike Brendan Rodgers. Okay. So Brendan Rodgers took over in 2016-2017. It was a time where the Celtic board needed to get the fans back on side. There was dwindling attendances after Ronnie Dyla's reign as the Celtic manager. And we needed someone to galvanise the fan base. Brendan Rodgers came in and he won the treble. It was an invincible season as well. We also played in the Champions League. We finished bottom. We had 3 draws. The teams that we were up against were Barcelona, Manchester City, and was it Gladbach? Was it Gladbach?
Gladbach, yeah.
I think it was Gladbach. Anyway, his debut season, James, you said at the start, James is frozen. No, he's not. He's just looking at the ceiling. Sorry.
I'm just thinking it can't have been Gladbach if we had Munich. Did we not have Anderlecht? But we couldn't have finished in 3 points because we bet Anderlecht away.
Was that the season after?
No, was this not the season where we drew twice to Man City?
Oh, but you said Barca, sorry. No, I'm talking pish. I thought you said Bayern. You said Barca. Because I'm thinking we had Munich and Gladbach, and that doesn't work. I'm talking shite, sorry.
McGinney, how important was it as a Celtic fan that someone came in with a stature? Brendan Rodgers had a reputation. He was looking to rebuild that reputation in the eyes of his counterparts down in England, but Scotland was probably the best zone for him to do that in.
It was a big deal for us to get him, but let's not pretend that we got him because I don't know how to phrase this the right way without just basically going the way that I need to. We only got Rodgers because Desmond's ego got burst. And Desmond went all out for him. If it wasn't for that situation, the semi-final game, and Desmond being a little bit fucking ego-hearted, which he deserves to be sometimes, we wouldn't have had Rodgers. So kind of thanks for that, almost, because getting Rodgers was absolutely game changer for us. It's opened our eyes up as fans to what we deserve as football fans now. See what happened with Lennon's second stint and see what happens now with Ange. We know what we want. It was one of the best things that could have happened for us as Celtic fans in modern times, was getting Brendan Rodgers in.
It started very badly, didn't it? We lost to
Lincoln Red Imps.
Lincoln Red Imps, yeah, but we managed to get through it. I think the final qualifier against, was it an Israeli team or something?
Well, Beersheva.
Well, Beersheva, aye. So we got there by the skin of our teeth, but into the Champions League. Notable signings, Scott Sinclair, probably one of his best. We also got Moussa Dembele. He was at free transfer. One of the few times where we've done that kind of cross-border rule where we've taken advantage of the transfer fees, e.g. not having to pay fuck all. Moussa Dembele is the kind of the outlier for that. Actually did work because everybody else, I think, has been more or less pish. We brought in Christopher Ayer, 600 grand. We brought in Gamboa. Abu Kouassi. We spent far too much money on Abu Kouassi. I thought he was pish. We brought in Doris de Vries, who was meant to be the keeper, the guy who was passing out for the back. But of course, you can't keep a good man down, can you, McGinty? And that's why Craig Gordon came to the fore.
No comment. I feel like this entire episode is just set up to try and bait me into bad chat.
Not at all.
That's why we've brought you back.
Oh, you brought me back. Is that what it is?
Kolo Toure as well, James. An important member of the squad, because for the qualifiers we might not have made it through without the likes of Kolo Toure. Huh?
Aye, was it the Beersheva away game? I'm getting mixed up. It was either Toure or Sviatchenko. I think it was Toure, but one of them came off the bench, and I think that game's still in injury time. I don't think that game's finished yet, honestly. It was fucking absolute torture. But Toure, it was either Toure or Sviatchenko. It was one of them came off the bench and was absolutely fantastic when they came on. But obviously after that, I suppose Toure done what he needed today at the start, but it was never going to be a kind of long-term thing. Just to get back on Doris de Vries as well. That goal, remember the goal against Kilmarnock at Parkhead, the wee guy scored for the halfway line?
Emily came on it?
No, Koulibaly. Because he moved to an Egyptian team and then left them like 6 months later because he was getting bullied. That was the reason. But I genuinely think that wee guy got £1 million move to that Egyptian team off the back of that goal, because it was literally like a couple of weeks later they left them. Anyway, fucking Kilmarnock chat.
One of the players who was so influential for Celtic prior to that was Chris Coleman, but I think the writing was on the wall, and he got loaned out to Hibs at that point. A lot of people got loaned out, people like Effie Ambrose as well, Nadir Chifty, thank fuck, Scott Allen. although for two people it worked out very well. Ryan Christie got loaned out to Aberdeen, came back, different type of player, and Christopher Ayer. I think, like, did we get Ayer as a midfielder, loaned him out to Kilmarnock, he became a centre back, and earned us a shitload of dough. Carlton Cole as well, managed to get rid of Carlton Cole. Fucking hell, man. Stefan Johansson, he was a player who did well prior under Ronny Deila, and he left to go to Fulham. I think he's still playing in England, actually, Stefan Johansson. But the Brendan Rodgers season, treble winner, Invincibles. Now, if we were to compare and contrast to Martin O'Neill, would you say the difference is that we were up against a good Rangers, whereas in Brendan Rodgers' case, we weren't?
1,000,000%. If you look at the job, if you look at the rebuild that Martin O'Neill had to do, and you look at the quality of the Rangers team, it's night and day, absolute night and day. You're talking about, and this is not a slight in Brendan Rodgers by any stretch of the imagination, but the biggest challenger that he had was a team who had just been promoted, a brand new team. But listen, don't get me wrong, Brendan Rodgers was the messiah that everybody cried out for, because towards the end of Dyler's tenure, he became a bit of a fucking bland biscuit. He was like the rich tea biscuits of football managers. And then obviously the semi-final that we lost to a certain championship side at that point, that was the end of the straw. But as I say, Brendan came in to 15,000 fans, I think, turning up that day to come and welcome him. And it was as if he just fucking descended from heaven. That's how much his stature that this guy had. Obviously, there was the whole thing that he nearly won the league with Liverpool. Ended up getting sacked. His Celtic background, allegedly. And then comes in and totally reinvents the team, re-galvanises a support who was fractured. Fantastic performances. Scott Sinclair was unbelievable. Kieran Tierney, he had rejigged guys like Stuart Armstrong. Unbelievable job. And obviously, the culmination of that season, the pinnacle of that season, was probably one of the last kicks of the season. Tommy Rogic via Aberdeen. That goal was just... I'm telling you, see, watching that goal, it was breathtaking. It was almost in slow motion. But if you ever watch it back with the fucking Celine Dion Titanic music in the background, it's just so suited to that moment, because it's like fucking that, like Pavarotti singing it again. It's fucking unbelievable.
Aye, great memories. I was on a stag night, McGinty. I don't know if you were there, but a stag night in the West End. Watching that Celtic and Aberdeen game, fantastic memories. Who would you say, James, the most important player under that Rodgers? I think Sinclair does stand out. Would you disagree?
Aye, the first season Scott Sinclair by a mile, but I think he give a shout out to Bruni as well. I think he spoke about it as well. I thought under Dyla he was kind of coming to the end. Obviously with the diet and stuff like that's well documented, but that was a kind of, I say it's a kick up the arse he needed, but it was a kick up the arse he needed, and obviously get right back to it, kicked on for there, and was different class under Rodgers. Probably the best football he's played at Celtic, isn't it?
And that difference that Rodgers had, or the effect that Rodgers had on Scott Brown, is probably the difference whenever you look at Scott Brown's career at Celtic as a Celtic legend. Probably the difference maker between being a good captain who won a few medals here and there to becoming a proper Celtic legend. You know, sliding doors moment. If Brendan Rodgers came in and didn't fancy Scott Brown, how his career would have been different, how our memories would have been different. Interesting times. And by the way, for the financial side, apparently we brought in about 3.5 million and we spent about 9.4 million. Which is not bad considering how we did in the Champions League. I know that we finished bottom of the group, but we drew with Man City home and away. I think that was Guardiola's first campaign with Man City. That was respectable. What was it? Was it 1 each at Parkhead and 3 each at Manchester, or was it the other way around?
Other way around. Man City had to equalise against us 3 times at Celtic Park. And then the one down at the Etihad, it was
Paddy
Patrick Roberts.
Yep. He was on loan for him and scored against them.
And he was allowed to actually play against his parent club, which is not normally allowed to happen in European competition. 50 years on for Lisbon as well. That invincible treble was poetic.
There's one I'll answer for Dan. If there's any children listening, I do apologise. He's asking me, did I just come? I almost did that day when I saw big Tam Rogic's sulky run. Sublime.
And that brings us on to Ange Postecoglou. We're not going to do a second one of Neil Lennon, of course. We don't want to get too depressed tonight. This is a happy podcast. So Ange Postecoglou, of course. And I want to again thank Michael Beale for inspiring us to do this topic for tonight.
Thanks, Miguel.
Yes. Postecoglou took over last season, 2021 to 22. And we know how it ended. They won the League Cup 2-1 against Hibs at Hampden, the Kyogo final. And again, it's going to be known as a Kyogo final because he's just repeated that feat against the Rotten Mob. And we also won the SPL title. Now, in terms of rebuilds, bringing it back to Michael Beale, he was moaning about how bad his job was, how hard he's got it at Ibrox. But Ange Postecoglou's rebuild, fucking hell, man, that was difficult. He had a similar job in terms of like Brendan Rodgers, where we had such a poor season prior to that. The fans were getting fragmented. Not fragmented, that's a poor word, disillusioned. There was protests outside Parkhead. We brought in Ange Postecoglou, and even at that point, as we well know from people like Alan Brazil, the talk sport host, he was taking a piss out of him. Nobody knew who he was, which is understandable, not knowing who he was, but to criticise him, that's maybe taking a wee bit too far. Then the news broke that he never had his coaching licence. Fair enough. The piss takers were loving it at that point, and even some of the Celtic fans were becoming disillusioned. That disillusionment was still continuing. They felt that the board weren't really hearing their protests. However, Postecoglou's done fantastic. We're all loving it, me bits. I've sent you the link to show you who he's brought in and who went out. So the key to the rebuilding job financially was Edouard, who went to Crystal Palace for about 16 odd million. Ayer went to Brentford, for about 15 million. And how in the name of Christ we managed to get money for Ryan Christie, who only had 6 months left on his deal, I will never know. Ryan Christie still playing. Indeed.
He does like a sell-on clause, does your Pedro?
And the other one is, McGinty, you need to go. Are you okay?
Is that because I mentioned Lowell?
McGinty's leaving us. It's okay.
Dion Dublin wasn't even mentioned and he's left.
The other thing I want to mention is we lost Scott Brown. The experience, I know that his legs were going, but the experience that he brought Celtic, a lot of people wanted him to stay on as a coach, but he wanted to ply his trade elsewhere, so he went off to Aberdeen. Paddy, at that moment, Postecoglou coming in, what were your thoughts? Did you have faith for that season at such an early stage? Because no. Rangers had already, Sevco already invincibles the season before.
No, I was absolutely distraught when I heard the name Ange Postecoglou. Obviously, coming off the back of that horrendous 10-in-a-row season, which you really don't need to fucking go over again. You know how, if you're a Celtic supporter, that would have scunnered even the most fucking positive person. But I think the worst thing about it was the whole summer. You know, we'd kind of been cock-teased by Eddie Howe. And everything in you was gearing you up for Eddie Howe to come in and be the next manager. You were expecting progressive football, all this kind of thing, a total change from what we saw that season there. And then I remember it as clear as day. I was up in Airdrie and I was in the van. I was waiting on my brother. and I got a text to say that the Eddie Howe deal is off. And bearing in mind, this was after months kind of back and forth. He's coming, he's not coming, he's definitely coming. It's all geared up. You were getting the messages. He's signing them Monday. He's bringing this guy, he's bringing that. And then the next minute it was, right, the Eddie Howe deal's off. And I went, oh my God. I was proper gutted. Absolutely gutted, because I'd geared myself up for Eddie Howe being the next manager. And then I left to go somewhere else in fucking Airdrie. And I think I was about 10 minutes. And then by the time I parked the van, I got another text to say Ange Postecoglou is going to be the next Celtic manager. And this is for something.
Was that the text for Daza? Was Daza the man in the know?
Was it? No, I don't think it was. Can't mind, actually. So it was definitely somebody in the know anyway, but I guess, and my first, my genuinely without any fucking muddy eye, my first thought was, who the fuck is Ange Postecoglou? And the elation had went for there for Eddie Howe to plummeted, and I was just like, who? Honestly, is this the absolute biscuit tin mentality coming back to Celtic again? And I was distraught, absolutely fucking distraught. First and foremost, I'd been gutted that Eddie Howe was cancelled, and then this fucking imposter guy is coming in the door, and I was just like that. And it wasn't until the next day that I kind of pulled myself up, if you want to say it like that, and I actually started looking at the guy. And obviously, as I say, totally naive or whatever you want to call it, I had absolutely no knowledge of the guy. But then as the days come on and I'd started to research him, started to watch the videos, and I think the main one that kind of stuck out to me was the interview when he was the Australian under-20s manager, I think it was, and he was having a right good go at some Australian sports presenter guy, and he was getting right in tore about him, and I'm like, actually I'd like to cut this guy's job, he's fucking not taking any shite. And again, watching more videos and this and that, blah, blah, blah. But anyway, for the minute Big Ange just came in the door, for the minute he flew in it in the helicopter, paraded with Don Mackay, there's been an aura about him. And I know that I'm pretty sure we actually started this at Ange's first season, started the podcast and that. And it was a bit tetchy for a time. It started off pretty good. I think one of the best games at the start was the 5-0. I think they beat St Mirren 5-0 at Celtic Park. And then there was a lull in performances. The performances started to dip. Things didn't look as if they were gelling. This whole inverted fullback thing didn't look. It looked absolutely mental. Greg Taylor and Tony Ralston were playing at centre mid whilst attackers were fucking flying down the wings, and I'm like, what's going on here? Then it started to change. You get to that Aberdeen game up at Pittodrie, and everything changed for that moment. And we've never looked back. We have never looked back for that moment. And see for then to now. And as much as I loved Martin O'Neill was my first Celtic messiah, if you want to call it that. My first Celtic hero as a manager was obviously Jock Stein. I'd been told all about Jock Stein. Tommy Burns was my first Celtic hero as a manager. Then it was Wim Jansen stopped at 10. Then after that, it was St Martin O'Neill. That guy was just he was up there with Jock Stein for me. But see now, honestly, I think I can see shades of Jock Stein and Big Ange, because when Jock Stein came in, Celtic were a mess, an absolute riot. And not only did Jock Stein come in and revitalise the first team, he revitalised the whole club. And that's exactly what Ange is doing now. Everything about this guy is telling you that he is putting in place something special. I like to call it the Ange dynasty. And I think that's definitely, he is building not just a team, but a club. And we are going to see the effects of Ange even after he goes, after he leaves. Everything that this guy is a party putting into place is it's a wonderful thing. And I've never been for a long time. I've not been so emotionally connected to a Celtic manager. But Big Ange just gets his club, and the whole thing about the immigrant background, and obviously Celtic's immigrant background, his demeanour, he speaks well, he doesn't take any pish, he doesn't get irate, he's just there to do a job, mate, and there's Hugh Jameson. That's a great comment. I liked it when a guy at the AGM asked Ange, "Are you Jockstein reincarnated?" The football's brilliant. The recruitment's brilliant. The only thing that Ange needs to prove now, to me, and probably the wider Celtic support, is how we can bring back the reintroduction of youth players into the first team. How do we get back to producing our own players? It's great, obviously, going out and being able to purchase players for other clubs, other leagues, other countries, but why have an academy when you're not producing the stars of the future? Celtic should always have players from their academy. I think he'll do it to a certain extent, but that's still to be proven. Obviously, Europe as well. We need to progress in Europe. We need to start picking up victories in the Champions League. But that's my main hope for Big Ange, because he's shown that he's a fantastic manager, shown that he can drive us to success, win cups, win leagues. He's done it. Now's the time to progress as a club. If he's wanting to go down that route, show us how to make that bridge for youth academy to first team.
James, can't really top that. Hard to top that. The one thing I would say, Paddy, you were saying that the one thing that Celtic fans want to ask Ange is about the youth development. I thought you were actually going to say the one thing that we expect from Ange is progress in Europe. But James, kind of hard to top what Paddy said there. He spoke about the feelings as a Celtic fan after getting after how bitching is at the 11th hour to the disbelief of Postecoglou being announced. But then eventually we start putting faith in this man, this great man. I'm not going to ask you a specific question, but I guess just your thoughts on the opening season under Ange. Anything?
I was kind of similar to Paddy when he got appointed. I was the same, absolutely buzzing for Eddie Howe. I had watched loads of videos about Eddie Howe. The Eddie Howe mic'd up. There was a Bournemouth film. It was like the 91st minute or something like that. It was actually really good. And I like to cut his jib and I'm like, this guy's going to be absolutely brilliant for us. Like, just everything, the way he plays fit, everything he stands for is going to be excellent. And funnily enough, I was actually at Strachan still at the fort when all the message, like the week leading up to it, you were getting the messages through Eddie Howe signed a 5-year deal. It was all the kind of wind-up text coming through. But then I got a text through and it was the Eddie Howe deal's collapsed. And I'm like, all right, that's another joke text. So I've went on Twitter and I've looked and I'm like, oh, fucking what, it has collapsed. So, I mean, I couldn't have moved at that point anyway. So, genuinely couldn't have been any more than half an hour later. All this stuff came out about Ange Postecoglou. And I'm like, this must be another wind-up text. This is a guy they've just plucked out Pro Ev and fucking just got to manage Celtic. And then, I similar to yourself, Paddy, but I went the opposite way with it. I started looking at him and I watched that interview with the fucking Aussie journalist that you're talking about, and I'm like, that's embarrassing. Imagine going on the telly and doing that. That's a neck. But I was raging, like pure fuming that the Eddie Howe deal had fell through. And then everybody's like, oh, he's won in Australia, he's won in Japan, and I'm like, I fair dues. But the season before he joined us, he came mid-table in Japan. I don't think he came to us as a champion. I think he finished mid-table in Japan the season before. And I'm like, fucking mid-table in Japan. I'm like, what are we all about here? And the minute I looked into him, I was arguing with everybody that's on the forums and all that with a cunt time myself I made. And I'm like, the guy's just an imposter. He's never going to do it. And then, I mean, here we are no more than 2 years later. And I would say, obviously, personal reasons come into it as well. A lot of shit's happened in the last year. I would say he's my favourite manager. He's gave me some of my best memories that I'll carry with me forever within the past years, as I say, even just for personal reasons as well. But just looking back at, and it's for where we were under Lennon in terms of the protests outside the ground, and it got to the point under Lennon, obviously you couldn't go to the game, you're sitting watching it on your stupid fucking Pass to Paradise thing, and it was like you were just so numb to it. It didn't feel as if you were watching Celtic. We were dropping points week in, week out, and you're like, do we even, like, you wonder, I don't want to say he didn't care, but it didn't feel as it should. And then this guy's come in and just like that, fucking got everybody back on side, and Aye, long may it last.
Aye,
I think a good point, right, James? Obviously, like the end of Lennon's tenure, every single week you were expecting to either get beat or drop points. Now, that's something we'd never felt since the 90s. Do you know what I mean? Every single week you're expecting to drop points. You don't get that way, Ange. Even see one of the big things for me is that I've grown to have patience in Celtic games under Big Ange.
Mm-hmm.
See any time like the Suburban game, Suburban game at the weekend, for example, you're getting beat 1-0. The football's absolutely turgid. You're expecting that in the second half as well under some managers at Celtic. You know fine well they don't know how to change games. They'll just continue on with the same shite, blah, 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 blah. I've not got that way. I see up until the 89th minute, see if you're getting beat 2-0, I'll still think we're going to win it.
Aye. No,
Every
100%.
single game. You look at the Ross County games, fucking Dundee United, all these games that we've tried so hard and we've never stopped. And for the first moment that I heard that mic'd up thing for Ange, I believe that 1,000,000%. We don't fucking stop until it stops, or something like that. And the guy is certainly honestly the guy has backed up every single thing that he said since he's walked in the door at Celtic Park. And the guy should be getting a fucking 4 and 5 years contract as far as I'm concerned. He should be getting a director of football role after that. He should be getting a
Statues.
he should be fucking getting Rod Stewart's seat at Celtic Park, all that kind of stuff.
We see just on the contract thing, I don't know how true it is, but I seen a thing saying that he likes the idea of a 12-year-old.
He did say that himself,
because he likes a bit of kind of control of the board, essentially, which I suppose if you
that's exactly what it is, because he still holds some authority. Do you know what I mean?
Aye.
Because he's only fucking stupid. Do you know what I mean? But I think the way he talks like about building for the future at Celtic, he's 2 transfers windows ahead in terms of his scouting. I think like the fact that he's here with his wife, his wife's came here with his young family. I say young family, but you know what I mean. I think that would go some way to make his family more comfortable. Would be to say, you know what, here's a 4-year contract. Listen, we're more than happy to know that you're going to be here. We're going to back you. You're bringing us success. We're going to back you. But here's just something to make you comfortable, make your family comfortable, make the team comfortable, because they all know that they're going to be here playing under your tenure. Guys in the youth team that are looking up to you potentially know that in a year's time, 2 years' time, you're going to be here and they're going to play for you. And everybody wants to play for you. The club wants to be here for you. You're here for the club. The supporters are galvanised. The harmony just everywhere is just it's as tight a bond can be. Fuck's sake, Real Madrid came here last season. The current champions of Europe came here, and we fucking felt as if we could beat them. The current champions of Europe, and we thought we were going to fucking beat them. That just shows you everything. That just shows you the type of fucking
character,
the type of everything that Andrew's done at this club. I honestly can't speak highly enough of the guy. I fucking love him.
I genuinely don't think there is anything that you could even say is maybe like a weak point. I mean, obviously his transfers have been absolutely fantastic, as you say, obviously the way the team's played football. Even his interviews, I mean, when Rodgers was here, he spouted a lot of bullshit about, as we've all seen, the Danny McGrain stuff and just stuff you want to hear. But
yeah,
Ange's
a more credible. He's a more credible character.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So see, just on that, James. See, that's what I was saying. Like, see, when Rodgers came in, Rodgers could have come in, fucking descended to heaven with a set of wings, as far as I was concerned. Everything that I heard for that guy, I was hanging on every single word. I couldn't hear enough of him. But then, seeing we get into the second season, and I got a lot of flack for this at the time for people in the fucking real world and all that. I says, I think this guy's full of shit, by the way, because fucking he spouted all this stuff before. Like, we were dropping points and it was like, oh, fucking miraculous performance and all that shit. I'm like, there's just something I don't like here. And they're all that we talk about, we're fucking on course to win a treble and all that. And I'm saying, but the football's shite in his second season. But again, as you say, mate, Ange he's so, I don't want to say educated. Well, he's obviously educated, like, but he's got a humbleness to him, and he's just one of these guys where he tells you straight. He doesn't pussyfoot about. He has got the media in the palm of his hand, absolute palm of his hand. The media try to do everything in their power in this country to manipulate and fucking bring up every single negative point and try and poke and prod every single Celtic manager into getting a negative reaction so that they can write their wee pieces, sell their shite, get into the minds of Celtic, manipulate them, as I say. But Big Ange, no way. It's like the guy for Dead Man's Shoes. You're fucking here, mate. You're here. He's got them.
That's a good movie. Good movie, by the way. Guys, I feel like weighing in right now, and I'm like bringing it down almost, because what you guys have said has been brilliant about Postecoglou. What can you say? I'll just touch on the finances, okay? We brought in 37 million. We spent 26 million. So again, this goes back to that prick, Michael Beale. Ange's first season, we made a profit. There wasn't, we never went into the red. We made a profit. We brought in 11 million in profit for transfers, which is fantastic. I'm going to write off a couple of the names. But these are household names right now in our lineup. They're like indispensable players. Like Kyogo, Starfield, Abada, Josip Juranovic, Giacomakis, albeit those two players have went away, but they made a massive impact in their debut season. Matt O'Reilly came in January. Hatate, think where Hatate was when he came in and where he is now. The guy's a fucking hero. Joe Hart. Like, there was some shit like Ideguchi, Liam Scales, Shaw, Urugide, Johnny Kenny, McCarthy. But those players, I don't think Postecoglou was really behind, apart from Ideguchi. Jota, Cameron Carter-Vickers, Maida. Fuck's sake. And how Callum McGregor has embraced the captain's role under Postecoglou. Talking about the impact that Brendan Rodgers had with Scott Brown. Albeit Callum McGregor was never at that age when Ange took over. But a lot of people never fancied Callum McGregor as captain. They never saw that he had the grit. But by God, he does. He really does. And the playing style as well, that's another thing that Postecoglou has done. It doesn't look like we could go stale, because we're like a metronome, you know. Jota was saying in his interview recently against the St Mirren game, everybody knows what they need to do. They practice for all game situations, and I don't think we'd ever get stale like it did have with Brendan Rodgers. But the playing style, in comparison to Martin O'Neill, to Strachan, to Lennon, to Brendan Rodgers, this is very, very entertaining. And the man itself, the guy is so charismatic. And what you said about his relations with the press, the way that he talks to them, you can't buy that. You can't buy that. You can buy a good manager because of his football brain, for his experience. But how he deals with the media is just a kind of byproduct. That's just an afterthought. The way that Postecoglou deals with the media overall encapsulates his character. So difficult to kind of talk what you guys said, but I think we all agree. We fucking love it.
See, one thing I want to bring up, Gav. Joe Hart. Obviously, you spoke about all these signings, right? Kyogo was probably like the test. I think Kyogo was Ange's biggest test in terms of his recruitment, because you're signing a guy for the J League. I don't think if it had worked with Kyogo, he wouldn't have got the Maedas in, the Hatatis, this and that, right? Obviously, all hypothetical, because it did work. But for me, probably the biggest signing and the guy that embodies everything that Ange's brought to this club, the galvanised unit that he's built, is Joe Hart for me. Joe Hart was the laughing stock of football. He was done. He was shite. He was the worst keeper in the world. He had been chased out of Man City because he couldn't play pass ball, couldn't play Guardiola's pass ball. Went to Torino, spoke Italian, let in fucking umpteen goals. He went to who did he go to? Burnley, West Ham, Spurs. He was told, listen, a goalkeeper, the manager of Spurs, who was Nuno Espirito Santo, who was a goalkeeper, told him, by the way, you'll never play for me. You'll not even be on my bench. I don't want you here. And Joe Hart spoke about that. Joe Hart's turned around and says, well, that's a hard thing to take, coming from an ex-goalkeeper, knowing that I play in the same position, this and that. But you know what? Fuck it. If that's what you think about me, tough shit, because I still believe in myself. And it's testament to Joe Hart's character that he's come up here and he's built a home. He's probably been doing in England in his bad spells, and he's heard about Celtic and probably went, oh, they're all right. Do you know what I mean? But he's another one of these guys that's came here. The guy's played fucking, I think he's got Golden Gloves or something for England. You know what I mean? The guy was a brilliant goalkeeper when he was younger, but now, as I say, he's went for the laughing stock. He's went for zero to hero. The guy has come up here and he's embraced the club. He's embraced the fans. He's embraced the spirituality that's at Celtic. Everything that embodies this club, everything that's beautiful about this club, Joe Hart has taken in like a present. Do you know what I mean? And he's a supporter now. Joe Hart's one of us now. He's a Celtic supporter. He's going to be the next one, like John Hartson with a Celtic tattoo. That's the kind of thing that Ange has done. He's brought in the broken toys. He's done the Moneyball thing, kind of. He's brought in fucking shite as I say, to replace Edwards going out. You've replaced him with Kyogo. Ayers away. He's been replaced by fucking Carter Vickers. Starfield. Greg Taylor. He's turned Greg Taylor, who was one of the worst fullbacks that I'd ever seen. Well, maybe that's a bad exaggeration, but Greg Taylor was a very, very bang average fullback. A wee tiny guy. He's turned him into an absolute leader at this club. A great servant. Calmac, as you say. Ralston's come in and done his bit. He's had guys like Juranovic, a Croatian right back. He's out the door now, and there's some fucking mad Canadian guy that looks like Gav running about. And this guy looks to be the new cult hero. It's like the guy looks absolutely brilliant, and he's another one. He's just running about, fucking pumping the chest. Everything's there. And you see Big Ange, he loves it. He just loves a celebration because you don't see much of him on the touchline. He just stands there and watches, spectates, seeing everything. And then you see him now smiling. Carter Vickers is hitting free kicks and he's laughing at him because it was so shite. Magic.
I think a massive thing I know that he's got the players to buy into as well is obviously we've got our starting 11, but it is a squad of 18 because like the players coming off the bench. I think I actually heard the thing on Clyde, and I could be totally wrong here, but I'm sure there was two players, but to be honest, I can't remember the other one. There's one player that's played every game this season for Celtic. Do you know who it is?
Abada.
Listen to it. Well, that was the second one. It was the other one. Sorry, it was the other one. The one I remembered, and I couldn't get away with it.
Who was the second one, Paddy? Did you guess it correctly?
No. Sorry, no. That was the stat that I saw the day. Nobody has made more appearances for Celtic under Postecoglou than Abada.
It was on Clyde the other day that I could be wrong. I was only kind of half listening. I was making my dinner, but I'm sure it said that there was two players in the squad. Hugh Jameson's got it there. O'Reilly has played every game this season. I couldn't get away with that either. Obviously, coming off the bench. O'Reilly. But as I say, but that's how much he's got people buying into this. You've got a squad of 18, obviously with the rotation. I mean, like Haksabanovic, Abada, they all look absolutely fantastic. Haksabanovic, more so hasn't started in recent weeks, but I mean, you're not really that math in quality bringing them off the bench, are we?
I'm glad we've done it in chronological order because like my happiness is up here right now talking about Postecoglou's first season. You could just talk about it into the night. The only bad thing, I guess, was Europe, but Europe even it did have a kind of an upside because that away game to Real Betis when we get beat, was it 4-2? We get beat 4-3, but we kind of started trusting, well, right, we can actually perform away in Europe. And I think Jota said it as well in an interview a while after the game. We were doing really well, and that's when we had fucking Ajeti playing up front for us away in Betis, you know. We get beat by Midtjylland in the UEFA Champions League qualifier. But in terms of the Europa League, you know, we were up against some good teams. Real Betis, Leverkusen, and Ferencvaros. We finished third, but I think it was the games against Betis which really showed people that we can actually compete if everybody buys into it and Postecoglou is backed in the transfer market. And we beat Betis at home, albeit Urugidi was playing in that game. Conflicting statements, I know. But we did very, very well away in Spain. Exciting times. But Postecoglou's opening season, it was amazing. And it's just getting better and better and better. And I hate to say it, but you know that guy, Stephen Thompson, the anchor for like Sports Scene or whatever, he actually put it really well. He said, it's getting better and better and better with Postecoglou. And at no point have we plateaued. And as much as he's a wee prick, a wee smarmy prick, he's actually very, very right. I can't disagree with him there.
See the thing about Ange, obviously, again, you can hark back to the fact that a lot of us didn't know anything about him. But you've had news coming in for Australian fans, fucking Japanese sports writers, Dan Olitz, fucking this guy and that guy. They all told us that you are getting a special guy, right? You're getting something that you've never had, that you've never seen in a manager. And every one of them all said, wait till you see his second season. Wait till he's come in. He's told the players what he's going to do in his first season. If he gets success, take that as a massive bonus, but wait till you see the second season. I think the good thing for us, well, obviously the good thing for us is that Ange came in with instant success. It really did come in with instant success. He won the Premier Sports Cup. We never won the Scottish Cup. We got beaten the semis after that mob. We won the league. Massive, massive thing for us to win the league and get into that Champions League outright. That'll benefit us next season. As you say, mate, quite rightly, Europe's been a learning curve for Ange. It's been a progressive learning curve. If you look at that squad that we had, as you say, guys like Jetty, Urugidi, that was him putting the building blocks in place to play Ange ball. He didn't have the players to do it, but he still had the guile and the balls to go out and try and play that way. We've then come into this season, it's a totally different game again. We've come into this season in the Champions League with players who've never played in the Champions League, have never played at that level. They've now realised they've now realised the difference between playing domestic football in Scotland every week to playing in the Champions League. The levels are there and there. Next season, get into that. If we can keep the nucleus of this team, maybe one or two good additions, we're going to be getting into the Champions League now next season with a team of players who have played in the Champions League, a team of players who have played in Europe. They're going to be smarter. They're going to be more wittier. Postecoglou's already shown it. I said at the weekend with McGinty and James. Postecoglou's doing things now that I was going mental at him for last season, i.e. no shoring up the defence, no bringing on defensive-minded players. He's doing all that now. He's bringing on guys like Awata when we're winning. He's shoring up a win. He's being smart. He's being savvy. I cannot wait till next season. Obviously, I know we're still in this season. The league's still not technically finished. We're in a very, very good place to win the league. Still in the Scottish Cup. Still in the hunt for a treble. We've fucking beat the bastards already. We've won the fucking cup. When everybody was against us, the media, everybody always telling us, the fucking Rangers are the best team in the world and Sakala's village in Zambia or fucking Zaire. You know what I mean? They're all jumping about with Rangers taps on as if somebody gives a fuck. I cannot wait till next season because it's going to be another special season for Celtic. And it's going to be in Europe. We are going to see some brilliant, brilliant results because we were almost there this season. Almost there. See if we'd have had that wee bit of luck. See if we had Kyogo in top form. See if we'd have just took that chance here and that chance there. We would have beat, well, we could have beat Real Madrid. We could have beat this one. It's almost there. It's almost perfect. And next season, you will see it. I'm fucking telling you.
Well, can I just ask a couple of questions just before we finish up? I think we've pretty much already answered one. From the conversation we've had and all the managers we've discussed, I think this is an easy one. I think we've answered it. You're starting a team up the Mora. Who the managers discussed? Who you phoning to manage the team?
Tony Mowbray.
All guys. he wasn't discussed. Are we all going to say Postecoglou? Aye.
Yeah, I was going to. I don't want to detract from what you're saying because I think you've got a good question. As much as we love Martin O'Neill, I was going to say, could Martin O'Neill do it with a small budget and having to work with youth? So that's why my answer to your question would be Postecoglou. Postecoglou would be the gaffer I'd be phoning.
Yeah, same, Paddy.
Oh, aye.
I'm the same, I know. And just my last one, I think we answer this, we ask this every 2 weeks and we always seem to get different answers. Who's your player of the season? No, player of the season. Only one name, you can't share it, you can't say 2 or 3. One player who you gain it to the new as we speak.
I'm going to go with Rio.
I said Greg Taylor the last time, but I think I would switch the new to Hatate as well.
Greg Taylor's been brilliant in the first half of the season. He's went from like an 8 out of 10 or a 7.5 out of 10 down to a 6.5 out of 10 now, I think. I tipped Rio at the start of the season to be the most improved player and the one to watch. Paddy, what speaks for him? I'd go for either Rio or Cameron Carter-Vickers. I think, put it this way, as much as I love Rio as an entertainer, I think that if you took Rio out of the team, or if you took Cameron Carter-Vickers out of the team, we would feel the impact more with Cameron Carter-Vickers going out of the team. So my heart says Rio, but my head says Cameron Carter-Vickers, the most important player.
Exactly the same, mate. If it wasn't for the fact that Rio has been playing outstanding stuff this season and creating so much for nothing, Vickers all day long. Vickers is a solid 8 or 9 every single week. The guy, you know me, I love my big fucking solid defenders. My big hard black guys, if you want to say it like that. But Vickers is just outstanding. He's the guy that we need. He's the defender that we need. He's the presence that we need. And for me, it's going to be really, really hard to keep him because he'll be getting eyed up with England again. Clubs down south. But until that happens, I'm just absolutely delighted to see him. And I say, like, jersey, he's fucking immense, incredible.
James, what would your answer be? Would you go for Postecoglou for your first one?
Aye, Postecoglou my first one. I did say a couple of weeks ago for player of the season, Greg Taylor, but I think it's changing all the time. Ask me next week, it'll be a different one, but I think I'd go Hatate the new as well. But see if the team of the season this year isn't 11 Celtic players, something needs looked into, man. I say 11, you could probably pick 16, no bother.
Right, 2 questions for you, two quick fire questions. What's the one position that you would like to see strengthened for next season? And I'm talking like if we had like 7 million to play with, just throw that figure out there, roughly. One position you would like to see strengthened for next season?
1-0 Chelsea. Goalkeeper.
Centre back.
Oh, that's really good. At first, I was thinking goalkeeper as well, James, because Hart's getting to that age, and if you can get a really good goalkeeper who can actually play with the ball at his feet, but if we got a really brilliant centre back for 7 million, let's bring the expectations down. That's a good one as well. Another question: out of our 4 main wingers, Jimmy Forrest is not in the picture. Out of Jota, Abada, Maida, and Haksabanovic, we had to sell one tomorrow. Who would you sell?
a badder.
Oh, that's a hard one. I think the obvious answer is probably Haksabanovic because he's no played a lot, but I like him. He's Gareth. I like him. I would go. Oh, that is a really hard one. I'd probably go Maeda, begrudgingly.
I would go Haksabanovic because I think everybody else, for one reason or another, is indispensable. Haksabanovic has never made that impact that the other players have had. You know, he's never had that one game or that run of games where everybody else has had that. So Haksabanovic for me. Anyway, Hearts tomorrow night, 7:45 at Parkhead. We always seem to win these games at night time. And then we'll get the back-to-back. We're playing them again at Tynecastle on Sunday, I think. Saturday. Can they derail the mission for the treble, Paddy?
Sorry, what?
Can Hearts fuck up our plans for a treble?
No, you mad? Fuck's sake. You honestly think fucking Jobby Nielsen's going to come to Celtic Park tomorrow and do any damage? Nah, not a chance.
No.
The game obviously, I know. I just wanted to call him Jobby Nielsen. No, obviously the game at Tynecastle's is generally a fiery affair. When Celtic come to Tynecastle, may I add, not when another team go there. So they'll try their best at the weekend. But nah, I think every fibre in my being says that they're getting pumped. So
good man. Right, okay. Guys, we've been on for an hour and 52 minutes. I've really fucking enjoyed this. Anything else you guys want to talk about before we wrap it up for this evening?
No, I'm just going to go in and touch myself and think about Ange.
And Dion Dublin, tell the truth.
That's why McGinty had to cut it short. It was just getting too much. Right, okay, guys, to the viewers, thank you so much for actually being with us for the full evening. I guess you can switch over to the Champions League now, even though you'll be reluctant to watch Chelsea. But thank you very much. We're playing tomorrow night. Can't guarantee that we'll do a post-match review because it'll be very late and we all have bedtimes. But at the very least, we'll be back for a post-match review for the Hearts game at the weekend on Saturday. So thanks very much. Guys, anything else before we wrap it up?
Same as what you say, mate. It's been a good chat this evening. Thanks very much to everybody for sticking around and all the comments. Just good to chat with you all.
Thank you. We love you. Thank you. Without you guys, would it be that much fun? Cheers. Enjoy your evening. Good night.